All right, perfect. So welcome everyone to the Studio B platform today. Today you'll be led by Dr. Christine Kiesinger, who is the Vice President of Business Development and Lead Trainer of Emotional Intelligence and Conscious Communications for Studio B. Christine helps to integrate her deep understanding of conscious communications and mindfulness into the Studio B curriculum. She has been teaching at the university level for 30 years and recently retired to focus on her personal and professional development coaching practice in corporate communications and mindful leadership trainings, as well as her work as an integrative wellness educator. Whether in the classroom, meditation cushion, and yoga mat, or within corporate settings, the foundation of all of Christine's teaching is mindfulness. So we just wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for participating. And certainly, Christine, will you be taking questions throughout?
Yeah,
just at the end.
I want you all to know that this is your hour. And we have a relatively small group, so this is what I would like. If at any point during this presentation, there's anything you want to know more about, if you have a question, if you want to make a comment, if something really resonates with you, just stop me. Just unmute yourselves and interject, because again, this is really your hour. I have an hour's worth of material, but I can pivot at any time.
Absolutely, and I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat box for Christine. So if you don't feel comfortable getting on your speaker and asking a question, you could go ahead and chat and I will read it to Christine for you.
Yeah, that's also a great idea. So chat away. I am so happy to be here, and I'm happy and excited to be here because this subject matter, the subject matter of relationship resiliency, is something that I've had a passion for 30 plus years. And it's especially timely right now, this notion of relationship resiliency. I want to share my slides with you. And again, if at any time you have any kinds of questions, please interject, because the subject matter of relationship is probably the most important subject matter in our lives. The other thing that makes me really excited about this topic is that Studio B is a mindfulness company. We are a mindfulness-based company. We share mindfulness-based practices. And what we're going to do today, or what I hope to accomplish today, is to show you that mindfulness just isn't relegated to something you do in a formal way, in guided meditation or in self-led meditation. Mindfulness is something that you can live. And a really important place where you can live mindfulness is in the context of your close personal and professional relationships. So that's what today is really about, because here's the thing. Relationship resiliency absolutely requires mindfulness. And so some of the key components of what it means to be mindful are going to come forth today as being absolutely essential to what it means to have a resilient relationship. I think somebody might be unmuted. If we can make sure everyone is muted so there's not the background noise. Can everybody take a look? Okay, I think that's good. I still hear a little bit of background. All right. So in late March, right at the time where most of us were asked to stay-at-home orders were in place, I read an interesting article in the New York Times, and it was written by a psychotherapist. And what she was addressing was this question: what do human beings need globally now more than ever? What do we need in the midst of an acute crisis that doesn't seem to have an ending? And the answer is that all human beings need to feel safe and they need to feel connected. We need to feel safe and we need to feel connected. Well, I started to think about this. And given the unusual nature of the crisis we are enduring, this global pandemic, our safety, every aspect of who we are in terms of our safety is being challenged right now. And so is our capacity for connection. There are so many things that we're worried and concerned about related to, am I safe? Are we as a couple safe? Are we safe as a family? Are we safe as colleagues in our professional organization? Is my job safe? This notion of safety is really turned upside down right now. And there's all kinds of new rules about how we can be connected. Many of us haven't been able to be in the presence of people that we love for 5 months. And we've had to find new ways of connecting. And we might be discovering that the road has been pretty rocky. And so connection has been compromised. So there's lots of things about the world right now that lead us not to feel safe and not to feel connected. When it comes to being relationally resilient, this is where we want to go right now. In a world that is so uncertain at this time, where connection is compromised, how can I create within my most important relationships a sense of safety and a sense of really honoring and nurturing connection? These two questions I want you to hold very close, and I want you to take these questions with you, because this is something that you can control despite all the uncertainty all around us. You can make an effort to mindfully create a sense of security and stability inside of your relationship, and you can work to deepen your connection. I like to use this slide whenever I talk about resiliency, whether it's personal, professional, or relational resiliency. You've all seen this happen. You have all seen a sprig of grass or some greens, even if they're weeds, or even flowers, coming up through the tight cracks of a surface. And you say to yourself, how did that happen? How did this flower or several flowers get to actually find expression in a circumstance that seems so dire? The tight crack, the dry earth. How did that happen? It's resiliency. We're all born with it. We all have the capacity to endure really tough situations. But we can take this notion of resiliency, and we don't do this very often. And it's really a mindful act to do this. And we can ask, how can my relationships, my marriage, my partnership, my parenting relationships, my friendships, my colleague to colleague relationships, how can these be as resilient as I am? How can they be as resilient as these flowers that are pushing themselves up through dry, tough, tight earth? Can we do that? And the answer is yes. But we usually don't give our relationships the kind of attention that they need so that they can be resilient, so that when the tough times come, and they will, we know this about life, when the tough time comes, we can stand as tall and as strong and as vibrant and as alive as those flowers that have found a way to poke up through that really, really tight crack in the earth's surface. Here's what we need to know about human stress. The stress that I experience, if left untended to, will come up and spill over and into my closest relationships. If I don't have an awareness of that, and if I don't tend to the stress that my relationship is now experiencing, it will begin to erode the foundation of those relationships. It's important to know that within a couple relationship, within a work relationship, within family relationships, anxiety and stress are absolutely contagious. They are contagious. And they will move, anxiety will move from your body, from your being, into those around you. And we're not always conscious of this. Oftentimes, the anxiety I'm feeling isn't mine at all. It's anxiety that I've picked up from someone that I'm close to. So having a sense of this, having mindful awareness of this is yet another reason why it's important for me to really meet my stress with a lot of skill and a lot of resources so that it doesn't begin to erode and impact my relationship in negative ways. Just as anxiety is contagious, the good news is, so is calm. So if I had to consolidate this entire webinar into 3 key words, this is what I would want you to remember. We'll come back to this slide at the end. It is always important for us to tend to prioritize, and to protect our relationships, always. But it is especially important that we're doing these 3 things now. Tend to. Am I actually paying attention to what's been happening in my most meaningful relationships? Have I put them on the back burner because I'm managing so many other things right now? Am I protecting them from the injury of stress that's not managed, that's not been tended to? So these are important questions to ask. When was the last time you tended to, much like you might tend to a plant, when was the last time you gave your relationship attention? Where is it on your priority list? And are you protecting it? So relationship resiliency occurs 3 ways, and they're all connected. To have a resilient, storm-proof relationship means that I am first and foremost very aware of what I need, what you need, what the relationship needs, and that we are aware of what matters most for us as a couple, as a family, as colleagues, what matters most for us right now. Relationship resiliency is cultivated through very conscious communication, and it is sustained through what we call a responsive mindset and being mindful. This is the recipe card right here for what it means to have a resilient relationship. And this is what the heart of this presentation will cover today. So we begin here, and we begin with ourselves. What do I most need of my closest relationships right now? What do I most need? That's a question that's often hard to answer. We know we need things, but we might not have the capacity to name what those things are. So I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. And this is a list, and feel free to screenshot this, to jot this down. But this is a list of what we call fundamental human needs that are globally important. And they differ for everyone in terms of how much each of us need of these things. So because this part of the presentation is exclusively about you, I want you to ask yourself as I'm moving through these, if I had to identify just one of these right now, what is my top need of these 5? And do people around me know this about me? Have I communicated that need? Number 1, everyone needs to have a sense of stability. I want to know what's happening next. This is why so many of us thrive in routine and scheduling. I want to know how you feel about me. Are we okay? Are things going well in this relationship? Are you satisfied? Are you fulfilled? I need to have the stability that relationship creates for us. Now, I might need that more than you, but every human being needs to know that the relationships that are important to them are stable. I can count on this bond. At the same time, we also need vitality. We need excitement, spontaneity, a little bit of unpredictability. And we need this to various degrees. I might be more of a stability person, and you might be more of a vitality person. And the way that I like to describe it is, it's the difference between taking a European vacation with someone who has the itinerary planned every 15 minutes is accounted for. That's the stability need. And then there's a person that shows up for the European vacation and wakes up every morning and says, what are we doing today? Because there's no plan, right? So those can be incompatible, and we need these things, but we just need them to various degrees. So where do you stand? And how does our present circumstance, a global pandemic, frustrate or threaten these needs? Significance. I need to know that I matter. I need to know that I'm valued. I need to know that what I say, think, and feel is important to you. I would say that of the 5 needs, over the countless times that I've taught this material, the number 1 need for most people is the need for significance. I need to know that you see me, that I'm not invisible. Again, that I matter. I need to know that I belong. I need to know that we are a partnership. I need to know that I'm part of the team. I want to know that I fit in. I want to know that I have a place at this table called relationship. That's belonging. I need and I want to grow. I want to learn new things. I want to develop. I need to know that in our relationship, we are growing together. That this relationship isn't going to be stagnant and still. It's always going to grow. It's always going to evolve. That's the growth need. And then there is the need for contribution. I need to know that my life matters. I need to know that at the end of the day, at the end of my life, that I made an impact, that I'm leaving something behind, that I'm doing work in the world, that I'm giving in such a way that it really makes a difference. Now, depending on who you are, where you are currently in your life, your phase of life, what you're up to, that's going to determine which of the 5 needs matters most to you now. Here's what I can tell you about why this is important. It is critical that other people in my life know, you know what, right now, in the instability of everything, I need a little more reassurance that I matter. I need a little more reassurance that I'm welcome here, that I belong, that we're a partnership, that we're a team. Can you provide that for me? What do you need? Turning to these people in your life and bringing them this list and saying, you know what? I learned today that these are really important needs that everyone has. But we have our top 1, our top 2, our top 3, and it helps me if I know what my needs are and I can articulate them. I'm going to be happier, more fulfilled. And it really helps me if I know what you're needing right now, so that I can be a conscious, mindful, responsive friend, partner, colleague. Needs matter. If I had to summarize all of what I just said into one slide, I would say to never forget that we all want to feel safe in our relationships. We want to know that we matter. And we want this relationship to be fulfilling and meaningful. This is what really matters to us. This matters to us beyond success, professional success, money, things, vacations, experiences. What matters to us is that within the context of our relational lives, we feel safe, we know that we matter, and we know that what we have created together is meaningful and fulfilling to both of us, to all of us. When you know these things, when these things are on your radar as an awareness, you begin to cultivate relationship resiliency. I want to invite you to practice what I call invitational communication. Now that you know these needs, I want you to go to people in your life, if you care to build this resiliency, and very authentically ask, what do you most need right now? And I want you to listen very deeply to what they're telling you, even listening beyond the words, because oftentimes what someone is saying isn't always what they're really feeling and really expressing. So really be present when you ask these questions. Seek clarity. Don't be afraid to say, I don't understand, and I want to be a good partner to you. I want us to have the best relationship possible in these really turbulent times. So help me to understand, and then take action. Because once someone reveals their top needs to you, when you ask them and engage in conversation at this level, it might be really different for you and your relationship. And make this also part of your family conversation. When we can all understand what we need from each other, everything shifts. And then take action and ask yourself, my partner, my child, my colleague just said that they're really feeling the stronger need for significance right now. So what can I do to meet that need? And maybe it's sending a warm, quick text message that says, I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you. Or popping a card in the mail. I've been sending a lot of postcards over the last 5 months with just a simple message on the back. I want you to know that you came to my mind today. I miss you. That's it. Do you know how meaningful that's been for when someone goes to the mailbox and there's actually something really personal in the mailbox? So just these small gestures where we communicate in really subtle ways, in ways that respond to what people around us really need. So when you're asking that question, what do you need? Mean it. And when you find that this person you're asking might be struggling to articulate it, maybe you sit down and you introduce them to those 5 needs. When you bring that into your vocabulary as a family, as a couple, as colleagues in the workplace, then it becomes part of the way that we consciously conduct ourselves in our relationships. So part of the work too of developing resiliency in our relationships is making a decision about what is my or our relational mindset going to be? What mindset are we going to operate out of? And this is really about making a decision together about what matters now. In some families, I like to keep it to 3 or 4 things. If you had to sit down with your family or with your spouse or partner or colleagues and say, in our relationship right now, what matters most? Honesty and transparency. Let's be really clear in our communication here. What matters most now is self-care, that we're all taking care of ourselves. What matters most now is that we are actively managing our stress. What matters for us now is that in the seriousness of everything that's going on, we have playtime, that we are having fun, and we are experiencing joyous moments in our relationship together. What 3 or 4 things now, knowing that these 3 or 4 things might change next week, next month, tomorrow, next year, This is your North Star. So when things feel really difficult, or you're arguing a lot, or there's a lot of frustration, you can come back to, hey, what are our 4 things? And have we strayed from them? I'm going to give you an example of powerful 4 things, and you feel free to use these if you'd like. These are 4 things that have been mattering a lot to me as of late in my relationships. Staying open, staying curious, staying committed to connection, even when it's hard, and staying committed to growing together. On its face value, this probably sounds great. What does it actually mean? This is what it means for me. This is my relational mindset. There's a lot of stress and overwhelm right now. And when we're in stress response, we can get defensive and defended really fast. We can shut down. So as much as possible, when I start to feel that I'm shutting down, I'm trying to commit to staying open. When we're in stress response, we get really committed to having it our own way and to being right and to controlling what's going on. I'm trying really hard to remain curious. I'm okay if you tell me why and how I'm wrong. I'm open to new possibilities. That's a mindset. When stress response is really high, we might find that we're arguing more, easily frustrated with each other, irritated. So I'm committed to us staying connected, even if it's tough. Because I know that when it's tough, I can run, or I will fight, or I will freeze and shut down. And I am committed, even in the turbulence of everything that's going on, to our growing as friends, as family members, as a parent and a child, as a married couple, as 2 people in a long-term committed relationship. I'm committed to growing with you. As colleagues, we can still grow in an atmosphere of crisis. So whenever I am experiencing any kind of relational conflict and strain, I always bring myself back to my North Star, or our North Star, because these work best when you co-create them with your family, with your colleague, with this other person. What matters most to us now? And it might be what matters most is that we walk as a family every evening at 7 p.m. And every day at the noon hour, we take a break and we check in with each other. And every day for 40 seconds, we hold each other in a warm embrace and we don't let go. And every evening before we drift off to sleep, we check in. Is there anything about our relationship, about what happened today, that we need to sort of get out into the air before we come into a restful sleep? What are your 4 things? Use those as your North Star, knowing that whenever you lose your way, they will guide you back. And this is an act of what it means to be consciously connected to each other in the context, again, of a family, of an intimate relationship, in a workplace relationship, especially if you have colleagues that you work very, very closely with. So that's all about awareness. Conscious communication is what gets us there. It's what gets us there every time. But what does that mean? I have the pathway here on this slide because this is the tool that we call upon to guide us in the direction of a relationship that's going to withstand the bumps in the road, that's going to withstand all of the uncertainty, the fears and the anxieties and the overwhelm that so many of us are feeling. I want to bring something in that can be a game changer when you put it into your awareness and you make a decision. We're going to be really mindful of how we are all communicating with each other. And this is where we get to the heart of having some mindful awareness about the relational dynamics that live in your home, that live around your family table, that live in your couple relationship, that live in your organization. You'll see on the screen a fairly ominous image. These are known as the 4 deadly horsemen of the relational apocalypse. Sounds dire for good reason, because if you allow the 4 deadly horsemen in, they can indeed lead to the demise of your relationship. They can cause serious harm. What's important about these 4 dynamics is that they can be reversed, they can be eliminated. You can make a decision, an intentional decision, that we're not going to do this. We are not going to talk this way. We are not going to relate in this way. And have that kind of be a very, very fundamental principle that's at the heart. You'll notice in the resource sheet that accompanies today's webinar that you'll have full access to lots of information on these relational dynamics. They come from the Gottman Institute. And John Gottman has been known for many, many years to study relational dynamics that help relationships to thrive and those dynamics that will erode. And his work around the 4 deadly horsemen of the apocalypse is his. It's his contribution. It's a very meaningful contribution in helping us understand what breaks families apart, what becomes toxic inside of groups and teams and organizations. These dynamics, if left to go wild inside of the relationship, can and do lead to separation, divorce, the ending of a relationship. They cause a lot of family friction. And be very mindful if these dynamics are at work inside of sibling relationships. We're noticing a lot of friction amongst siblings right now because most of them have been home all the time, 24/7, in a way they never have been before. So if you're observing any of this happening in your family, we want to nip this in the bud with this kind of awareness. None of these dynamics will surprise you. What might surprise you is their erosive impact and how one leads to the next. So the first horseman arrives when suddenly criticism is becoming part of your dynamic. And when you think of criticism, you want to think of unhelpful feedback. Feedback that really isn't feedback at all, but is really an attempt to kind of nitpick at the other person. And with each little pick, you're kind of eroding who they are, what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. This kind of criticism that I'm talking about here usually grows out of high levels of stress and irritation and agitation that you're feeling. And you're just sort of directing it. And it might be on one child in your family. It might be on your spouse. It might be on a colleague that for whatever reason feels annoying to you. But be wary of this, because if it is present, it inevitably leads to defensiveness. If you're picking on me constantly, you better believe that as a human being, I'm going to start to defend myself. And then we start to see this dynamic getting reciprocated. You're picking on me, I'm going to pick on you. And now there's another level of defensiveness. And then it can become part of an entire family system or an entire team. Okay? So now the second horseman has arrived by necessity. If criticism is present, let's go into defense mode. Oh, wow. And then if that's not tended to, we don't nip that in the bud, if we don't name it and address it, contempt rolls in. And you'll realize that contempt is in black here. It's in dark lettering to stand out. It's in bold print. Contempt. When contempt arrives, let a red flag wave to indicate pay attention. Contempt is, I am harboring feelings and thoughts about you that are so intensely negative. You are on my last nerve. Contempt is, I am annoyed by the sound of your breathing. I am annoyed by the way you hold your fork. Contempt is, this doesn't happen very often anymore, contempt is we are out at a dinner party and you see two people going at each other at the dinner party in a way that makes everyone at the table aghast and really, really uncomfortable. The energy of contempt is very, very difficult to even put words to. It's difficult to define, but we know when it's present. The energy of contempt is so incredibly draining. It is stressful, not only for the two people that are between which it exists, it affects everyone. If contempt is present between anyone, for example, in a family system, a work team, an organization, it will spill out and into, it's sort of like a virus. It will infect everyone. It inevitably leads to what we call stonewalling. And this is when two people, you can do a couple of things here. When I stonewall, it's like enough. I am putting a wall, a fortress around my heart, around who I am, because I can't live like this anymore. Stonewalling, I'm going to completely shut down. I'm going to pretend that everything is fine when it's not. Stonewalling, we are going to live in quiet desperation. We are never going to address the toxicity that has occurred between us. So these things build upon each other. We refer to them as erosive, corrosive dynamics, again, that can really shake up the foundation of what otherwise can be a really, really good and meaningful relationship, only because we weren't paying attention. And we let slowly each of these horsemen come in. Okay? Criticism starts to chip away, not only at the other person, but at the relationship. Defensiveness will close off. It'll close people off to each other. Contempt will just cause damage, sometimes damage that feels irreversible. By the time we get to stonewalling, it kind of feels like the relationship has just flatlined. Okay, so these are the impact. But there's very good news. There is an antidote, a way to combat the presence of any one of these horsemen. How do I combat, prevent against, ensure against criticism? Lots of praise, lots of affirmation, lots of gratitude. I cannot emphasize this enough right now. Think about appreciation. When was the last time that you conveyed, whether it was through words or gesture, authentic appreciation for your child, for your spouse, your partner, your colleague? Just notice 3 times per day something that they've done, a way that they looked at you, a moment that you observed, and comment on it. Express your gratitude. And this might sound kind of hokey and trite. It is essential in eradicating the impact of criticism? How do I prevent against or combat defensiveness? Just as I said earlier, no matter how rough it gets, I'm going to constantly call myself back into the reminder, things are hard right now, but I'm remaining committed to you. I'm going to remain committed to this connection. So let's make that our commitment. Be uncompromising about contempt. Again, it's in bold. Say to your partner, your colleague, your team, your organization, we will be uncompromising about contempt. Say to your family around the dinner table, contempt doesn't live in this house. Say to your intimate partner, contempt does not live in this relationship. It has no place here. And when and if we feel it, we name it. I give you permission to call it out. You give me permission to call it out. We don't want it here. It's too corrosive. And then stonewalling. There are a lot of really, really good reasons that we often need to shut down and walk away from a relationship. And we all know what those reasons are. So sometimes we need to do that. But sometimes the relationship is salvageable. It's something that we can give attention to, we can prioritize, and we can protect. And one of the ways that we can do that, if we feel that we're coming into stonewalling, is to committing to this very simple phrase. It's hard. It's gonna be hard. It might even get harder, but no one leaves. Now, on the face, it might feel like no one leaves might mean no one gets up, packs their bags, and leaves. But let's look at it in a more subtle yet more powerful way. No one leaves might mean no matter how much I want to check out right now, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in this difficult moment with you. I'm not going to shut down. We've all had experiences where a moment is really tough and we're in it and we're trying to sort of sort it out. And we realize that we're dealing with someone who has left the premises, meaning they are not there with you. They might be there physically, but you look into their eyes and you realize, wow, this person right now is really stonewalled. There's like a vacancy there. And one of the reasons that we do that is it's part of the stress response. This current moment is really stressful for me, and so I shut down. So if I see that, I might say to my daughter or my spouse or whoever it is, my colleague, I might say, hey, this feels really intense right now. And I'm getting the sense that you've just stonewalled or that you've just shut down or that you're not really here with me. Should we take a break and come back to this? Because I'm committed to our connection, and this is really important, I want to know that you're fully here as we're grappling with this together. Now that language might sound strange, but it's language that is aligned with what it means to say, hey, our relationships always matter, but they matter now more than ever. And that I know that what I need and what you need and that what everyone around us needs is to feel really safe and to feel really connected. So sometimes we have to have these really difficult conversations that we stumble through, that we fumble through, but we have to have these difficult conversations so we can get to that place of safety and connection so that we can get back to our North Star, what really matters. So we don't receive, it's really important to be so compassionate with yourselves about this because we don't receive any education in how it is that we can show up and live in our relationship in ways that are just wide awake, in ways that are really conscious and really meaningful. We don't know how to have difficult conversations, but there are ways to do that, and we can learn. But again, it really begins with awareness. It really begins with then making a decision to be mindful and conscious as we navigate our way, and to be very aware that there are certain dynamics that, again, if we let them go unleashed inside of our relationship, we might lose that very thing that we most need. So the impact of the antidotes, praise and affirmation, appreciation, always elevates the other person. Look at what praise and appreciation and affirmation does to a small child. They light up. We are no different. We are no different. When I remain open, even when it's tough, the landscape of our relationship expands. It becomes bigger. We become bigger in it. I promise you that. When we are uncompromising, contempt will not live here. And if it arrives, we're going to call it out and we're going to do something about it. Being uncompromising about contempt is a form of protecting your relationship. And staying connected, no matter how difficult things get, is how we keep our relationship alive and vital, as opposed to letting it flatline or totally shut down because we've been stonewalling for so long. So this is the impact. If you're interested in knowing more about the horsemen and about the antidotes, because there are so many more antidotes and ways of handling criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling, please look at those resources that will be on that resource guide that I put together for you. And it will take you very, very directly to a deeper dive into those 4 dynamics and the 4 antidotes. So I also mentioned that part of sustaining relational resiliency is by adopting a commitment as often as possible to be very responsive to each other as opposed to reactive. Remember, reactivity is something triggers me, you trigger me, I go from 0 to 100 really quick. Or I just find you irritating, frustrating, aggravating, like prickly when I am around you. Reactivity is my emotions feel very erratic in the context of this relationship. Responsiveness or reactivity can be very, very quick, fueling up and into anger or explosiveness. I want to make it very clear that many of us have been in high reactivity mode over the course of the last 4 to 5 relationships, or 4 to 5 months, because of the stress response that we're feeling and experiencing related to what's happening in our external circumstances. So if you know you've been really reactive, if you're noticing your kids are reactive, or your partner or your colleagues or your leader or manager, perfectly normal right now. But again, we can still grow in the midst of all of this turbulence. So I want to give you a couple of tools that can rapidly take you into responsiveness. The first is what is known as the 3 R's. Every time I feel triggered, I'm going to retreat a bit, like, oh, wow, I'm feeling those sensations that, tell me that I'm really getting charged up in relationship to this issue or to you. So I'm going to retreat. I'm going to take a little bit of an opportunity to kind of regroup, calm down, and I'm going to create my response before I come back to you. Now, retreat, regroup, respond can happen in an hour. It can happen over the course of a couple of days. It can happen over the course of weeks. I know a couple that right now they are in this and they don't have a timeline. 4 days have gone by. They are retreating. They are regrouping. They haven't come back yet to respond. And that's okay. Why? Because they don't want to be reactive, because the issue at hand is high stakes right now. And if it's not managed properly, consciously, mindfully, it could lead to the end of the relationship. So they've decided we're going to retreat, we're going to take it some time to regroup and come back and respond from a place of calm. 6 deep breaths can change everything when you are feeling triggered. 6 deep, intentional breaths. So that might mean on my first breath, I take an inhale, and as I exhale, maybe I relax my face and my jaw. On that second breath, I might relax my shoulders. On the third breath, I might relax the belly. On that fourth breath, I might relax through the feet and the legs. On that fifth breath, I might relax through the whole body. And on that sixth breath, I might say, I'm ready to respond. And if I'm not, maybe I need another 6 breaths. And maybe you don't do any of that except breathe. I want to teach you something quickly right now that is a fast track to being more responsive. I would like for you just to take a moment where you close your eyes or keep your gaze very soft, eye muscle soft, so you can keep the eyes open, doesn't matter. And I want to invite you, even though it might seem or feel strange, to take both hands and place them right over center chest. Just place them right in the center of your chest. And in sort of mindfulness speak, we say that we are placing the hands at the center of the heart or heart center. And I want you to know that just feeling the sensation, the weight, the warmth of your own hands right here in the center of your chest can create a grounding and a stability and an anchoring that can move you out of stress response. And as you're resting here just for the next few moments, I want you to ask yourself, what do I most need right now? And let the answer arise. It doesn't matter. It might be, I need a glass of water. I need to tell my partner that I have a high need right now for belonging. I really need to reach out to my child. I need the 6th breath. What do you need right now? And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. I can be anywhere. I can be on a Zoom meeting and feel a little triggered. And because my relationship to my colleagues matter, I can just place my hands right here. No one needs to know what this means. I can place my hands right here and still be engaged and just feel the weight and the warmth of my hands right here and just anchor down, ground myself. And I might even ask, wow, Christine, what do you need right now? Maybe I need to speak or speak up. Maybe something that was said during the meeting didn't sit right with me. Maybe I just need to come back into myself just for a little moment, to retreat. The answer is going to be different every time. But a lot of times the reason that we're triggered is because we really do need something and that need isn't being met. The best way to cultivate relational resiliency with people in your life that you love and care about is to make sure that you are connected to yourself. And then finally, connect to each other and do this in a really intentional way. Couple of ideas. This is especially meaningful in relationships that you would define as close. The power of the human embrace. Passionate Marriage, which came out of the work of Dr. William Charnack, is a game-changing book for those of you who might be listening who have come to feel sort of maybe a drifting in their romantic relationship. You don't have to be married, by the way, to benefit from this book. But one of the things that he writes about, I believe he has a whole chapter devoted to the power of the human embrace. And there's a lot of science and neuroscience to back up why it is that hugging is absolutely essential to our well-being. So what David Charnack recommends as a way of coming back together, a way of sort of beginning to close that gap, especially for couples who feel like they're drifting, is to practice a 45-second embrace. And he means a front to front, frontal body connected, not what he calls the A-frame hug, where only the tops of the body are connecting, but that you are connecting in the front of the body, through the front of the body, head to head, chest to chest, heart to heart, belly to belly, lower body to lower body. About 45 seconds of a very meaningful warm embrace starts to generate truly the production of oxytocin. And it is the oxytocin hormone that really begins to soften us up if we've been really defended and really defensive with each other. It softens it up. If you don't believe me, hold a baby or hold a warm animal or hold a young child very close to you for just a few minutes, and you will begin to feel this, this release. This is how we can find our way back to each other. Now, I don't recommend this necessarily in a colleague-to-colleague relationship, but I do recommend it in families where embrace is appropriate and welcomed. Okay, it's very, very powerful. Another powerful modality is when two people sit back to back and you begin to breathe together. You just start out breathing. I'm breathing just as I'm breathing. You're breathing just as you're breathing. And as we start to breathe like that, we begin to breathe together and it becomes synchronized. And even though we're not facing each other, we can feel the warmth and the support of each other's back. And we're reminded that when we are resilient, we have each other's back. It is a powerful form of coming together. Practice random acts of kindness. And don't just relegate random act of kindness to strangers. Be kind to each other in ways that your children, your partner, your colleagues, your team members would never expect. Again, I talked about appreciation and gratitude and how important that is. And then finally, and I'll end here, ask yourselves, because we know on that one slide, what matters so much to us, and we are all born with this need, is we all have a need to grow and to develop and to evolve. And that need shows up in our relationships too. So we can ask each other, how can we grow together? What do we need to do to grow together? And develop a plan around that. So our time is up. That was a lot, but I hope that there were some things here that were meaningful to you. Again, our mindfulness is not just relegated to our formal practice or just deep breathing or coming into periods of meditation. We can be mindful in our relationships. And this is when we begin to live mindfully. And this is when we begin to embody what it means to be a conscious, mindful partner, colleague, parent. And these are just some tools and strategies to support you. I am so happy to be here again, and I am very happy to stay on. If anyone has any questions, any comments, if any of that resonated with you, again, it's your hour. So remember that today's lesson is going to be followed up with a very robust resource sheet. And again, some of that content, if you found it interesting, go ahead and take a look at it, dive deep into it. It'll take you right to the Gottman Institute. And there's endless resources there for you to support you in, again, building this strength and resiliency in your relationships in really conscious and mindful ways.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We've really enjoyed the last hour with you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Take care.
Have a great day.